My name is Zariah Monroe. I'm 33 years old, a community arts teacher here in New Orleans, and until recently, I believed I was living the kind of marriage people prayed for, the type of union my grandmother used to bless me for, saying, "Baby, may you find a man who holds you the way the Lord holds his children." For almost 2 years, I thought that prayer had been answered. I thought I had found my person, you know, the one who feels like a safe place in a world full of storms, the one who protects you, nourishes you, speaks to your spirit like he's known it forever. My husband, Elijah, played that role so beautifully I never questioned it. He made breakfast for me on Sundays, sweet potato pancakes, the fluffy kind that melt on your tongue. He'd pack my lunch on days he knew I'd be busy with the kids at the arts center. He'd text me little reminders like, drink water, sunshine, gotta keep you glowing. And every night, at 10 p.m. sharp, he'd bring me a small glass of water with 2 capsules. Vitamins, he claimed were helping with my energy and sleep. He'd kiss my forehead, smile at me with those warm brown eyes and say, "Gotta take care of my queen." I trusted him. Lord knows I did. Because trust is a dangerous blessing, one you never think twice about until it turns on you and cuts you open from the inside. But before I tell you what I discovered, before I tell you how my world split in half, how I learned that the man sharing my bed was the same man destroying my life, I need something from you. If you're listening to this, hit that like button. Subscribe. I need this story to reach every woman who swallows something her partner gives her without thinking. Every woman who dismisses her instincts. Every woman who wonders why she's suddenly tired, foggy, confused. If it can happen to me, an educated woman, someone who teaches kids how to build futures with their art, then it can happen to anyone. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let me know what time it is for you right now. I read every single one of them, and it reminds me I'm not alone, that this story matters. Because trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. Elijah and I got married 3 years ago. We met during a hurricane prep fundraiser at the community center. I was helping organize supplies, and he walked in with a case of bottled water on one shoulder, like some kind of everyday hero. He smiled at me, God, that smile, and said, "You look like you could use an extra pair of hands." I laughed because it was true. He stayed the whole day helping out. He was charming, steady, funny in a humble way. Not loud, not boastful, just present. We talked for hours that day, and by the time the sun dipped behind the clouds, I'd already handed him my number. We dated for a year. He proposed on the river walk behind Café du Monde, powdered sugar blowing everywhere because a gust of wind came at the worst possible moment. It was messy and perfect and so very us. Our wedding was small, just family, a little jazz trio, and the kind of food that makes your soul exhale. Everyone loved him. My mama adored him. My nieces climbed all over him like he was a jungle gym. He was the picture of a good man. And for the first year, our marriage was good. We fixed up the shotgun house we bought in mid-city. We talked about maybe having a baby someday. We fell asleep on the sofa more nights than I can count, watching documentaries and old movies until one of us drooled. I was happy, deeply, beautifully happy. Then, about 7 months before everything fell apart, Elijah introduced the vitamins. He'd been reading some wellness articles, he said. Stuff about supplements helping with stress and immune support. "I know you work hard with those kids," he told me. "You give so much of yourself. Let me take care of you a little." And I let him, because that's what love looks like, right? Letting someone care for you. The pills look normal. 2 pale capsules. No label. No brand I recognized. He claimed it was a specialty blend he found from a local herbalist. The first week, nothing seemed off. I slept deeply, woke up rested, thought maybe they were doing what he said, but then things started happening. I began forgetting things. Simple things at first, whether I answered an email, whether I turned off the stove, what day a meeting was supposed to be. Elijah would bring up conversations we supposedly had, and I'd stare at him blankly. We talked about repainting the studio, remember? You said you wanted to visit your mama this weekend. You promised we'd host dinner for Jamal and Tessa next week. But I remembered none of it. When I questioned my own confusion, he brushed it off gently. Baby, you're exhausted. Teaching is draining. You need more rest. And it made sense. It always made sense when he said it. The exhaustion got worse. I'd sleep 9 hours and wake up like I'd been beaten. At work, I'd freeze mid-sentence, staring at a student while words evaporated from my mind. Then came the clothing changes. I'd go to bed wearing one thing and wake up in something entirely different. Sometimes nicer, sometimes older things I barely remembered owning. When I asked Elijah, he'd chuckle, "You changed in your sleep. You were half awake, babe." I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? 2 months in, I found bruises, deep ones on my arms and thighs, like fingerprints. My stomach dropped. "Elijah, look at this," I said one morning. He examined them with a worried expression. "Baby, maybe you're low on iron. Maybe you bruised yourself getting out of bed." He suggested a doctor. He even made the appointment. Blood work came back normal. Doctor said maybe I needed anxiety meds. Elijah jumped on that suggestion like he'd been waiting for it. That explains everything. Stress, mood, sleep, it all fits. Another prescription. More pills, more things going into my body without my real consent. My best friend Kendra was the first to say something real. She called me one afternoon during my planning period. "Zariah, you okay? You look off lately. Last weekend you seemed sedated. You were slow, unfocused, not yourself." Her voice cracked a little. She's known me since I was 12. She can read me better than anyone. I tried to laugh it off, tried to convince both of us I was just tired. But after that call, something inside me shifted, like a sliver of fear pressing against my ribs. That fear turned into certainty the day I found the locked drawer in Elijah's office, a drawer that had never been locked before. He brushed it off casually. New client, sensitive files, extra security precautions. But something in me tightened. Something whispered, "This isn't right." It was around midnight. I thought I woke up, but my body felt heavy, my mind thick and slow, like I was underwater. I heard Elijah on the phone in the hallway. His voice was low, but I recognized the tone he used when he thought I couldn't hear him. Fragments reached me through the haze. "Tuesday night. Same price. She'll be out cold. Don't worry." Terror slashed through me. I tried to move, tried to sit up, tried to cry out, but my body wouldn't respond. Paralysis and awareness, a nightmare you can't wake from. When I finally slipped under again, the last thought I had was, what is he doing to me? But in the morning, Elijah was normal, loving, gentle, smiling at me like I was his whole world. I convinced myself it was a dream, because the alternative was too horrifying to accept. But that moment, that overheard whisper in the night, it planted a seed of suspicion that would grow into the truth. A truth that would shatter everything I thought I knew. A truth I barely survived. After that night, the night I heard Elijah whisper about me being out cold, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside my life had shifted, like the puzzle pieces of my world had been rearranged while I slept, and I was the only one who didn't know the new picture. In the daylight, everything seemed normal. Too normal. Suspiciously normal. Elijah made beignets that morning, dusted with powdered sugar the way I loved. He danced around the kitchen to an old Jill Scott song, humming off-key like he always did. And he looked at me with such soft tenderness that I wanted to scream. How could someone look at you like that, hold you like that, kiss you like that, while planning your destruction? He slid my vitamins across the counter that morning. I hesitated for half a second. He noticed. "You okay, baby?" His eyebrows lifted with concern. You look a little pale. Want me to add some orange juice? The lie came out automatically. I was getting too good at lying. Yeah, just tired. I swallowed the pills, or pretended to, tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth, waiting for him to turn away so I could slip them into a napkin. He never used to watch me so closely, but lately, he checked every single time. Like he didn't trust me to take them, like he needed to be sure. And the moment that realization hit me, ice slid down my spine. That entire day at the art center, I felt like a balloon tied with a string, floating slightly above reality. The paint fumes from the kids' canvases made my head throb. Their chatter felt distant. My own voice sounded wrong in my ears. I tried to shake it off. Sip water, breathe, push through. But the exhaustion was bone deep. Not normal, not human, synthetic, engineered, by the man I trusted most. When I got home, Elijah greeted me with a hug so tight it almost hurt. Rough day, sunshine? His lips brushed the side of my neck. I made gumbo, your favorite. His voice wrapped around me like honey. But all I heard was poison. The guilt twisted in my gut. Why did I feel guilty? Why was I the one hiding something? Why was I protecting him from the truth I didn't even fully understand yet? Because that's what abuse does even before you realize it's abuse. It trains you to protect your captor. Later that evening, Elijah stepped out to take a call for work. His office door was open a crack, the same office where the locked drawer waited, mocking me. I stood in front of it, with my heart pounding against my ribs so violently I could feel it in my teeth. What was inside? What could possibly require a physical padlock in the home of a man who said he trusted me? I tugged the drawer gently. It didn't budge, and an awful truth slid through me. Whatever was in this drawer wasn't about work. I leaned closer, trying to hear what Elijah was saying outside. She won't be any trouble. His voice was too calm. Just stick to the schedule. My breath caught. Schedule? She? Me? The phone clicked off. Footsteps approached. I ran out of the office so fast I almost tripped. That night at 10 p.m., Elijah brought me my vitamins. Same warm smile. Same gentle forehead kiss. Same loving whisper. Sweet dreams, my queen. But this time, I didn't swallow them. I let them sit under my tongue until he left the room. Then I spat them into a tissue and shoved it deep into the trash under layers of paper towels. Still, within 20 minutes, my limbs grew heavy. My vision blurred. My head drooped. A wave of crushing fatigue dragged me downward. My heart slammed into my ribs. How was I getting sleepy if I didn't take the pills? Was my body conditioned? Trauma trained? Or had I taken them so long my brain simply expected the fog? The thought made bile creep up my throat, but I fought it. God, I fought harder than I've ever fought anything. I pinched the inside of my arm until I nearly broke skin. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. I whispered numbers to myself in a shaking voice. 99, 98, 97. Anything to stay awake. Because tonight, I needed to know the truth. At 11:42 p.m., Elijah came in quietly. Too quietly. Predator, quietly. I shut my eyes halfway, just enough to see him through my lashes. He leaned over me. His breath hit my cheek. He watched my chest rise and fall to see if I was fully unconscious. Satisfied, he brushed my hair gently off my shoulder. Then he left. But he didn't go downstairs. Not yet. He went to the bathroom, turned on the faucet for a few seconds, and then I heard the thump of something being placed inside the medicine cabinet. A bottle? Pills? What else was he preparing? My hands trembled as I gripped the sheets. I forced myself not to breathe too quickly, because if he knew I was awake, everything would be over. The moment that will haunt me forever. I heard the basement door creak open. Soft footsteps descended the stairs. Not just Elijah's steps. Another set. Heavier. A man's voice floated up faintly. Unfamiliar. Gravelly. "You sure she's out?" Elijah replied, "She hasn't woken up in months. Trust me, she won't tonight." My nails dug into my palms until I felt skin break. Another voice joined in, higher, nervous. "And you're positive she won't remember anything?" Elijah laughed. "She never does." Something inside me shattered. Not cracked. Shattered. Because memory gaps, bruises, clothing changes, none of them were coincidences. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't anxious. I was drugged, intentionally, by my husband, and he wasn't acting alone. A horrifying realization crawled up my spine. What had they done while I was unconscious? I wanted to scream, kick, run, burst out of the bed and call the police, but terror glued me in place. And then, like ice being poured into my veins, a new thought. If Elijah believed I was asleep, I could use that. I could finally get answers. But I needed proof, and I didn't have any. Just fear, just suspicion. And the world doesn't convict men based on a woman's fear. I needed something undeniable. When Elijah came to wake me, his touch made my skin crawl so violently I almost recoiled. He smiled, the same easy smile he'd always had, and handed me a mug of coffee. "Sleep well?" "Yeah," I lied. My voice cracked. His eyes narrowed slightly, just enough to tell me he heard it. I forced myself to sip the coffee, forced myself to thank him, forced myself to act like the woman he thought he controlled. But inside something cold and sharp and furious was growing. By the time he left for work, I was shaking. I stumbled into the bathroom and vomited until my ribs ached. Then I looked in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes were hollow, my hair was matted from sweat. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. But one thing was clear. She was done being a victim. I couldn't confront him. He held all the power. He was calm, calculated, careful. But I had something he didn't. Instinct. An instinct told me that if I stayed one more night without a plan, I might never wake up again. So I made a decision, the kind women make when survival becomes more important than fear. I would get proof, quietly, secretly, completely. And then I would burn his entire world to the ground. After work, I didn't go home. I drove to a tech store on Canal Street, wandered around with numb fingers until I found the section I was looking for. Hidden cameras, small ones, wireless, cloud-connected, easy to conceal. I bought 2, paid cash. My hands shook as I carried the bag back to my car, because this wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was war. At 5:30 p.m. sharp, as always, Elijah went for his evening run. The moment the door clicked shut, I moved like a woman possessed. Camera 1 went in the bedroom bookshelf, a perfect angle of my nightstand where he always placed my pills. Camera 2 went into the basement vent. It took everything in me not to vomit as I crouched in that dark space, knowing what had taken place there. By the time Elijah returned, I was sitting on the sofa with papers spread out, pretending to grade. He kissed my cheek. I forced a smile. "Thank you for dinner," I said. The lie tasted like metal in my mouth. That night, when he brought me my pills, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry, and anger is a kind of clarity. I pretended to swallow the pills. He checked my mouth. I passed the test. He kissed my forehead. "My good girl." I almost flinched. Almost. But I didn't. Because tonight wasn't about fear. Tonight was about evidence. Tonight the cameras were watching. Tonight the truth would finally reveal itself. The next morning, Elijah left the house earlier than usual. He claimed he had a meeting across town. But I knew better now. Every word from his lips felt like smoke. soft, warm, and toxic. The moment I heard his car pull out of the driveway, my legs nearly gave out. My body was shaking with adrenaline and dread, because today I would learn what had been happening in my own home, what had been happening to me. I locked the front door behind him, double locked it, checked the windows, pulled every curtain closed. The air felt thick, suffocating, wrong, like the walls themselves had witnessed things I hadn't, like the floorboards held secrets under their grain. I walked to the kitchen on trembling legs and opened my laptop. The hidden camera app was already downloaded. All I had to do was sign in. My breath hitched, my finger hovered over the trackpad. Once I clicked into those videos, there would be no turning back. The truth changes you, and I knew, deep down, that whatever I was about to see would scar me so deeply I might never fully heal. But I also knew I had no choice. I clicked, and the world as I knew it split open. The first file was from last night. The recording began at 9:57 p.m. I watched Elijah walk into the bedroom, set the water glass on my nightstand, and place the 2 capsules beside it like he had done hundreds of times before. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. He looked tender, loving, concerned. A man who brushed the hair off my cheek like I was something precious. But then he lifted the capsules, held one up to the light, inspected it, and then he said quietly to himself, "Perfect." He placed them back carefully. Something in my throat closed. This wasn't love. It was ritual, preparation. I clicked forward. 11:03 p.m. There I was, me, lying under the covers, my breathing slow and controlled, pretending to be asleep. I watched Elijah lean over my face, his hand hovering above my chest, counting my breaths. Then he gently shook my shoulder. I didn't react. By some miracle, my acting was convincing. He smiled, a soft, satisfied smile, and whispered, "Good, stay under." My entire body recoiled from the screen. Stay under. He knew exactly what he was doing to me. I clicked the info panel. The camera had recorded every night for 7 months. 7 months of files. Hundreds of hours. I felt bile rise up my throat. My hands were trembling so hard, I almost dropped the laptop. I didn't want to watch anymore, but I had to. In clip after clip, I watched Elijah come into the bedroom after he thought I was unconscious. He changed my clothes, adjusted my body like I was a doll, moved my limbs, brushed makeup on my face, lifted my eyelids to check my pupils, whispered things to himself about angles and lighting, went through my phone, deleted, and sent messages. I watched myself, limp, still, vulnerable, being handled like an object. Not a wife, not a person, not someone loved, something owned. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying not to scream. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. My fingers trembled violently as I clicked the second camera feed. At first, all I saw was the dim outline of the basement. Exposed pipes, storage boxes, concrete floors, then movement. Elijah descended the stairs at 2:14 a.m., glancing over his shoulder like a criminal. He wasn't alone. A man followed him. Then another. 3 total. My pulse hammered. My chest tightened. The camera angle wasn't perfect, slightly tilted and grainy through the vent, but it showed enough. Elijah walked to the makeshift table he set up. There were envelopes stacked neatly, a laptop, a small light aimed at the wall. The 3 men approached him. "You got the footage?" one asked in a low voice. Elijah nodded and turned the laptop around. The men leaned closer, their faces twisted with sick interest. They looked at pictures of me, sleeping, unconscious, barely dressed. My breath stopped. I felt something inside me snap. A tear, a break, a fracture that would never fully mend. One man whistled softly. Damn, she really out like that? Every night, Elijah said proudly. It's clean. She never wakes up. The room spun. I tasted metal. My mouth was dry. My veins felt full of ice. Another man asked, Any new shots? Elijah smirked. Got some fresh ones last night. Higher dosage. I slammed the laptop shut and ran to the sink as my stomach heaved. My body rejected the horror, expelling it the only way it knew how. When I finally lifted my head, tears blurred my vision so badly I could barely see. I wiped my mouth with shaking fingers. But I wasn't done. I had to go back. I had to finish this. I forced myself to open the laptop again, because justice isn't born from comfort. It's born from courage, the kind you summon even while shaking. In the footage, one of the men pulled out a thick envelope filled with cash. He handed it to Elijah. Elijah counted it meticulously, then nodded. Same deal next week, he said. The men agreed. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was a business, a routine, my exploitation scheduled like a recurring appointment. Elijah escorted the men up the stairs. Before he turned off the light, he glanced toward the vent, toward the camera, but not quite at it. And then he said something so quiet I almost missed it. Good girl stays asleep. I froze. I replayed it. He whispered it like a mantra, a command, a confirmation of control. I felt violated on a level deeper than flesh. This was the desecration of trust, of intimacy, of my humanity. I opened the folder where the footage had automatically uploaded. There were subfolders: Sessions 1 to 77, Favorites, Angles, Sleep Shots, Edits, Requests. My vision blurred. I clicked one at random. A still image filled the screen. Me, unconscious, propped up. My nightshirt pulled slightly off one shoulder, vulnerable, exposed, lifeless. Something inside me cracked so violently I could feel it. I screamed. A raw, guttural sound pulled from somewhere deep in my soul. I slammed the laptop shut again, my chest collapsing inward. I felt like I was suffocating. The house felt contaminated, a tomb of secrets and betrayal. I stumbled backward until my spine hit the refrigerator. I slid to the floor, sobbing into my hands. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time didn't exist. All I knew was this: I was not safe. I had never been safe. And if I didn't leave now, I might not survive. When the sobs finally slowed, something else rose in their place. Something fierce, something sharp, something alive. Rage, white-hot, blistering rage. Rage at Elijah, rage at myself, rage at every lie I'd swallowed like medicine. He thought he owned me. He thought I was property. He thought I would never wake up, literally or figuratively. He thought wrong. I wiped my face with shaking hands. My breath steadied. My heartbeat settled into something steady and strong, and a single thought crystallized with terrifying clarity. I will destroy him. I will bury him with the truth he created. I will make sure he never hurts me or anyone else, ever again. I packed quickly. Documents, clothes, laptop, camera backups, USB drives, everything I needed to prove what he'd done. I backed the files up 3 different ways: cloud, external drive, encrypted email. I wasn't letting a single shred of evidence disappear. Not after everything he stole from me. I ran out of the house without looking back. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene, and he was the criminal. I got in my car, hands trembling so badly I struggled to turn the key. Then I called the one person who had never failed me, Kendra. When she answered, I broke. I need you, I whispered. Please, I'm not safe. I'm coming to you. Her voice sharpened instantly. Come, now. I'm here. You're not alone. For the first time in months, I believed that might be true. Kendra lived only 20 minutes away, but the drive felt endless. Every red light made my heart slam into my ribs. Every car behind me felt like it might be him. Every shadow made me flinch. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting Elijah's truck to appear at any moment, imagining him tailing me, realizing I'd found everything, coming for me with the same calm smile he used when bringing me poison disguised as love. By the time I reached Kendra's block, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. She was already outside, barefoot, hair wrapped, phone in her hand, and when she saw my face, she didn't ask a single question. She just ran to my car, pulled me into her arms, and held me like someone who was saving me from drowning. I collapsed against her, shaking violently. "You're safe now," she whispered. "No matter what happened, we're going to handle it." For the first time since everything unraveled, I believed her. She got me inside her townhouse and locked the door. Then she sat me on the couch, wrapped a blanket around me, and pressed a glass of water into my hands. Everything felt surreal. Too quiet, too gentle, too safe for the nightmare that had been unfolding. When I finally found my voice, it came out in pieces. "Kendra, he was drugging me." Her face froze. "What?" "For months. 7 months. Maybe more." I dug my nails into my palms. The words were shaking loose like stones. "He brought men into our house." Her breath caught. "What do you mean, brought men into what?" "Zariah, what are you saying?" "He was showing them videos, pictures, of me, while I was unconscious." Kendra's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears, horror widening them. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God." I nodded, choking on air. "He sold them, men. He sold access to my body. He ran it like a business." Kendra looked like she might vomit. "Zariah, you have to go to the police." "I have proof." I reached for my bag with shaking hands. "I have everything. The footage, the files, the pills, everything." She stared at me like she couldn't believe I was real. Then her expression hardened into something fierce, protective, ruthless. "Okay," she said. "We're not waiting. I'm calling them right now." She dialed the non-emergency line while I sat beside her, clutching the blanket around my shoulders. Her voice was steady, firmer than I'd ever heard. "Yes, my friend needs to report a serious crime. She's safe at my home right now, but we need officers here as soon as possible." Pause. "Drugging. Months of drugging. And potential sexual exploitation." Another pause. "Yes, she has video evidence." Her words made me dizzy. They made everything real. Within 20 minutes, a patrol car pulled up outside. 2 officers stepped into the living room. A young black woman with calm eyes and an older man with a notepad already ready in his hand. The woman introduced herself. "Detective Layla Hart." Her voice was soft but strong. "We understand you're in danger. We're here to help." Something inside me loosened. Just a little. They sat with me for over an hour. Detective Hart asked gentle but targeted questions, helping me stay steady enough to answer. "When did the symptoms start? When did you first suspect something? How often did he administer the pills? Did he have access to your phone? When did you notice outside individuals in the home?" I told them everything. Not every detail. I didn't have the strength for that yet, but enough that their expressions shifted from concern to anger to something cold and controlled. Detective Hart didn't interrupt. She didn't doubt. She didn't blink. When I finished, she leaned forward and said, "Zariah, what you're describing isn't just one crime. It's multiple felonies. Drugging without consent, covert recording, exploitation, distribution of intimate images, potential trafficking." I shuddered. The word trafficking hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't a stranger victim. I wasn't someone grabbed off a street. I was a wife, and he trafficked me. My knees buckled and Kendra grabbed my hand. Detective Hart continued, "We're going to need all the evidence you mentioned. If you're comfortable, we'd like to view a few clips now to verify the situation." I swallowed hard. "I can show you." It took everything in me to open the laptop again. My fingers shook as I clicked the hidden camera folder. Detective Hart watched silently as the video played. Elijah hovering over me, testing my unconsciousness, adjusting my clothes. At one point, the male officer had to look away for a moment. Detective Hart's jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. When the footage shifted to the basement scene, the men, the money, the laptop, she froze the screen. "That's enough," she said quietly. She turned to me. "We believe you, and we're taking this extremely seriously." I burst into tears, because hearing those words, "we believe you," did something inside my chest that felt like release after months of suffocating. Detective Hart outlined what would happen next. I would need to come to the station for a formal recorded statement. They would issue an emergency protective order. They would contact the DA to begin the paperwork for a search warrant of my home. A forensic team would seize Elijah's laptop, hard drives, pills, and any materials connected to the crimes. I would stay somewhere safe, preferably away from the home, for the foreseeable future. I nodded through tears. "What if he comes here?" I asked, voice shaking. "We'll add this location to the protective order," she said, "and you won't be alone, not for a moment." Her tone was gentle, but unshakable. At the station, they placed me in a private interview room with the soft lighting and water bottles stacked neatly in a corner. Detective Hart sat across from me. "Take your time," she said. It took nearly 2 hours to get everything out. The memory gaps, the bruises, the pajamas, the locked drawer, the vitamins, the fog, the phone changes, the basement voices, the pill taste changing, the night I stayed awake, the footage, the files, the men, the money, the business. By the time I finished, my throat burned. Detective Hart reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "You survived something monstrous," she said, "and you're still here. That matters." I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow, but I nodded anyway. They filed it immediately. The judge signed it within hours. Elijah was legally barred from contacting me, approaching Kendra, coming within 500 feet of either of our homes or workplaces. Just seeing his name in writing, with restrictions surrounding it, made me physically shake. Something about knowing the law was now between us made me feel both safe and deeply violated all at once. Like I needed the world to protect me from my own husband. By midday, Detective Hart returned to update us. "The warrant is approved. We're sending officers to your residence right now." The room tilted. What if he's home? We checked. He's not. We waited for him to leave his workplace. He's out. They'll secure the property safely. I exhaled shakily. The idea of strangers entering my home to uncover horrors felt surreal, but necessary. Hours passed. It felt like days. Finally, Detective Hart called me again. Her voice was steel. "Zariah, we found everything." I swallowed. "What do you mean, everything?" The locked drawer contained multiple hard drives. They're full of modified images and video clips. Some are much older than you reported, likely from before the severe drugging began. My stomach dropped. "So he planned it? Before?" "Yes," she said quietly. "It appears so." She continued, "We also found cryptocurrency account records, buyer lists, message logs, schedules, and the pills. Our lab has already confirmed they contain rohypnol. Poison. He had been poisoning me. Every night. Every single night." I stared at the wall in front of me, numb. Kendra squeezed my knee. Detective Hart added, "We believe he was doing this systematically, professionally, with intent." The room felt smaller, colder, darker. Where is he now?" I whispered. We're sending officers to arrest him within the hour. My breath caught. Arrest. Arrest. The word felt both enormous and not enough. It happened faster than I expected. Detective Hart called back again. It's done. He resisted, but we restrained him. He's in custody. I covered my face with both hands and sobbed. Not because I missed him, not because I loved him, but because I finally felt something like justice breathing down his neck instead of mine. 2 days later, he tried to call me from jail. I didn't answer. I let it ring. His voice was poison. His words were weapons. And I wasn't letting him inside my head again. Not now. Not ever. That day, the day the police believed me, protected me, and arrested Elijah, it didn't erase the trauma. It didn't heal the wounds. But it was the first day I felt powerful again. The first day I realized I was no longer trapped. The first day I understood I survived him. I lived to tell the story he expected me never to remember. And I wasn't done fighting. Not even close. People like to think that once the police arrest the monster, the nightmare ends. I wish that were true. The arrest was just the beginning. The real nightmare. The part where I had to stand in bright rooms and tell strangers about the darkest things that ever happened to me. That came after. A few days after Elijah's arrest, Detective Hart called me back to the station. We want you to meet the prosecutor assigned to your case, she said. She's already gone through some of the evidence. She'll walk you through what comes next. I felt heavy as I walked into the DA's office building. It wasn't fear of them. It was fear of having to say everything out loud again. Kendra came with me. She sat next to me in the waiting area, her hand wrapped around mine like a lifeline. Whatever they ask you, she whispered, remember, you're not the one on trial. But I didn't feel that way. I felt exposed, fragile, like I was about to be graded on how convincingly I could recount my own trauma. An assistant called my name and led us into a conference room. Inside was a woman with locks pulled back into a low bun, sharp glasses, and an expression that managed to be kind and no-nonsense at the same time. Zariah, I'm Assistant District Attorney Carla Jennings, she said, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for being here. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Her voice had the kind of weight that comes from seeing too many things like mine. We sat. She had a thick folder on the table, my life, condensed into reports and screenshots and files with evidence tags. I've reviewed the initial footage and the preliminary lab reports, she said. I won't sugarcoat this. What Elijah did is serious, very serious. We are looking at multiple felony charges. The words barely registered. Can you walk me through what that means? I asked softly. She nodded. We're likely charging him with administering a controlled substance without consent, sexual exploitation, distribution of intimate images without consent, and multiple counts tied to trafficking-related statutes, given the financial transactions and pattern of behavior. I blinked. Trafficking, I repeated. The word still didn't feel like it belonged to my life. Yes, she said, meeting my eyes. Trafficking doesn't always look like what people picture. It can happen in a marriage. It can happen in a home. When someone profits off your body without your consent, repeatedly, that qualifies. Something inside me twisted. I wasn't just a wife who'd been betrayed. I was a trafficking survivor. Ada Jennings continued, her tone careful but firm. The good news, if we can call it that, is that you were extremely smart to set up those cameras before confronting him. The visual evidence is strong. The files we seized from the house and his devices line up with the timestamps from your cameras. She flipped a page in the folder. We have records of payments, online communications with buyers, encrypted chats negotiating prices, category labels, schedules. I swallowed hard. He had categories? She nodded grimly. Your case isn't random, Zariah. He built a system around you. It made my skin crawl. He didn't just hurt me. He structured it, optimized it, organized it like a product line. I thought I might throw up again, but I didn't. I sat there and forced myself to breathe. In, out, in, out. We're going to fight this, Ada Jennings said, and we're going to fight hard. But I won't lie to you. The process can be long. There will be hearings. There may be a grand jury. There will be defense lawyers who try to twist the narrative. You ready for that? I stared at the table for a long moment. No, I said honestly. I'm not ready, but I'll be there anyway. Her eyes softened. That's all I need. After that meeting, everything became a blur of logistics. Kendra insisted I stay with her indefinitely. Don't argue, she said. I already moved my extra blankets out. This is your room now. I offered to pay rent. She refused. Your rent is staying alive, she said. I'll invoice you later for emotional trauma, though. She tried to joke, tried to make me smile. Sometimes it worked. Most days, it didn't. I barely slept. When I did, nightmares tore me awake. I installed a small security camera in Kendra's hallway and bedroom doorway, ones I controlled this time. She didn't complain. Whatever makes you feel safe, she told me. This is your house as much as mine. My mama wanted me to come stay with her in Baton Rouge. Baby, I'll drive down right now, she said through the phone, voice thick with tears. I know, I whispered, but I need to be near the DA. Near Detective Hart, near the court. She didn't like it, but she accepted it, barely. You call me every night, she said. You hear me? I don't care if it's for 30 seconds. You let me hear your voice. I promise. The first time I saw Elijah after his arrest, he was in an orange jumpsuit. It was a preliminary hearing. Ada Jennings warned me ahead of time. You don't have to come, she said, but some survivors find it helps to see that the abuser is contained. Contained, like a virus, like something that needed to be sealed away so it wouldn't spread. Kendra went with me. We sat in the second row. The air in the courtroom felt heavy, paper shuffling, people murmuring, the distant hum of the building. Then they brought him in. My heart stuttered in my chest. Elijah shuffled in, hands cuffed, ankles shackled. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, less polished, but his eyes were the same. He scanned the room and found me, held my gaze. For a moment, the world dropped away. It was just us, him and the woman he drugged and sold. He mouthed something. I couldn't fully make it out, but I saw the word baby. My skin crawled. Kendra squeezed my hand until it hurt. Look at me, she whispered. Not at him, me, right here. I tore my eyes away. My pulse hammered so loud I could barely hear the judge speak. The hearing itself was mostly procedural. Bail denied, protective order extended, court dates scheduled. His lawyer argued that there was no proof of harm. Ada Jennings almost laughed. Your Honor, we have video evidence of the defendant repeatedly administering an illegal sedative to his wife and hosting men in their home for paid access to and viewing of her unconscious body. Even the judge's expression tightened. Bail denied, he said flatly. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Elijah was staying locked up. For now. The body holds trauma in strange ways. Even with Elijah in jail, I jumped at every sound. My heart raced when someone walked behind me. If a man stepped too close in line at a store, my vision blurred. I couldn't swallow pills. Couldn't even look at them without my throat closing. Headache? I suffered through it. Cramps? I curled up and breathed until the wave passed. The sight of a small white capsule on a commercial made me flinch. Kendra noticed all of it. One night, she gently suggested, Z, maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist? A trauma specialist? I stared at her, exhausted. I'm tired of talking about it, I whispered. I know, she said, but the choice is kind of between talking about it with someone trained to catch you or letting it tear you up alone. I didn't agree right away, but the next time I woke up shaking from a nightmare, screaming, drenched in sweat, I knew she was right. I needed help. Detective Hart recommended her. Dr. Simone Wells, she said. She specializes in trauma, especially sexual violence and exploitation survivors. I've seen her change lives. The first time I sat in Dr. Wells' office, I almost left. Soft lamplight, warm-toned walls, a box of tissues on the coffee table. The universal sign of "you might cry here." She was in her mid-40s, with kind eyes and the calmest voice I'd ever heard. "I'm glad you're here, Zariah," she said. No clipboard, no rush, just presence. For a while, I didn't talk at all. She didn't push. She just asked, "What would you need to feel safe in this room right now?" It was such a simple question, but no one had asked me anything like that in months. I don't know," I said. "Maybe to sit closer to the door?" "Of course." We switched seats. She sat across from me, a good distance away, her hands in clear view. "We'll go at your pace," she said. "We don't have to dive into details today. Maybe we just start with this. What do you want life to look like one day, when this is further behind you?" That question broke me more than any other, because I hadn't thought past survival. I hadn't allowed myself to imagine anything after. I started, and tears filled my eyes. "I want to sleep without being scared. I want to take medicine without panicking. I want to feel like my body belongs to me again." She nodded slowly. "All of that is possible," she said. "It won't be fast. It won't be easy. But it is possible. And if you're willing, we'll work toward that together." For the first time, I felt something faint and unfamiliar flicker inside me. Hope. While I was working on my healing with Dr. Wells, Ada Jennings was working on building the case. Over the next months, there were meetings. Lots of them. She showed me outlines of the charges, explained what each one meant, prepared me for the possibility of testifying before a grand jury. "Your evidence is incredibly strong," she said, "but the defense will still fight. They may try to argue you consented, that this was part of a kink arrangement, that you changed your mind after the fact." I stared at her in disbelief. "How could anyone believe that?" She sighed. "You'd be surprised what people are willing to believe to protect their view of a nice guy. But we're not relying on opinions. We have timestamps, drug reports, financials, and third-party testimony. They can throw mud, but the facts are on our side." "Third-party testimony?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "We've identified some of his clients, men who paid for access to the content. We may offer a few of them plea deals in exchange for testifying against Elijah. It's messy, I know, but their testimony could lock the door on any doubt for the jury." The idea of those men, strangers who had stared at pictures of my unconscious body, speaking about me in court, made my skin crawl. "I don't want to see them," I whispered. "You may not have to," she said gently. "But I won't lie. Some survivors have found it empowering. Hearing these men admit what they did under oath can feel like wresting some control back." I didn't know how I felt. I just knew I wanted Elijah in prison, forever if possible. The legal process moved slower than my pain. Months passed. I kept teaching. I went back to work at the Arts Center eventually, on a part-time basis at first. The kids didn't know the details, of course. All they knew was that Ms. Monroe had been gone, and now she was back. One of my students, a 16-year-old girl named Ayana, lingered after class one day. "Miss Z," she said, you look different, but stronger. I don't know, just, I missed you." I almost cried. Instead, I smiled and squeezed her shoulder. "You have no idea how much I missed y'all," I said. Teaching gave me something to cling to, something outside of court dates and therapy and panic attacks. When I was helping a kid find the right color to mix or guiding them through a mural design, I wasn't a victim or a survivor or a witness. I was just Ms. Monroe, and I needed that. By the time Elijah's lawyer filed the first motions to suppress evidence, I wasn't the same woman who'd run to Kendra's door months earlier. I was still scared, still broken in some places, still healing in others, but I was also sharper, clearer, less willing to doubt myself. Elijah had taken so much from me: time, safety, trust, innocence, but he hadn't taken my will to fight. And as I sat across from Ada Jennings one afternoon, going over my upcoming grand jury testimony, I realized something. This wasn't just about putting him behind bars. It was about reclaiming my narrative. He had turned my life into content without my consent. Now I was taking the story back. By the time Elijah's lawyer filed the first motions to suppress evidence, I wasn't the same woman who'd run to Kendra's door months earlier. I was still scared, still broken in some places, still healing in others, but I was also sharper, clearer, less willing to doubt myself. Elijah had taken so much from me: time, safety, trust, innocence, but he hadn't taken my will to fight. And as I sat across from Ada Jennings one afternoon, going over my upcoming grand jury testimony, I realized something. This wasn't just about putting him behind bars. It was about reclaiming my narrative. He had turned my life into content without my consent. Now I was taking the story back. The grand jury room was strangely quiet. A long table, chairs, 12 people sitting in silence, waiting. Ordinary people, teachers, retirees, grocery store clerks, people who might have walked past me at the cafe or in the park. People who had no idea their decision today would shape the rest of my life. There was no judge, no defense lawyer, just the prosecutors, the court reporter, and the jurors. My palms were sweating. I wiped them on my pants discreetly. Ada Jennings gave me a small nod. "You may begin," she said softly. My voice trembled at first. "My name is Zariah Monroe, and I'm here because my husband was drugging me." A few jurors blinked in surprise. One woman's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. I continued. "For 7 months, he gave me pills every night and told me they were vitamins. But they weren't vitamins. They were sedatives." Jennings guided me with questions, but she did it gently, like someone helping a child cross a street. "Zariah, can you tell the jury what made you suspect something was wrong?" I took a shaky breath. I started losing time, hours, conversations. I'd wake up feeling like I'd been unplugged. A murmur rippled through the jurors. I'd go to bed wearing one thing and wake up wearing something else. I had bruises. I couldn't remember sending messages that were on my phone. My voice cracked. And I trusted my husband. I trusted him with my life. So when I started doubting myself, I believed him when he said it was stress. Jennings nodded, letting the silence settle before continuing. "How did you learn the truth?" "I overheard him on the phone one night. He said I'd be out cold, and that someone didn't need to worry." I felt myself shaking. "And that's when I stayed awake one night. I didn't swallow the pills, and I heard him go to the basement. With other men." Gasps this time. Small, quiet, horrified gasps. My vision blurred with tears. "I set up cameras. I filmed what he was doing." Jennings tapped the folder in front of her. "And did the videos show that he was administering drugs to you?" "Yes." "And did the videos show that he brought men into the home to view or obtain images of you while you were unconscious?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." One juror, a middle-aged man, had a hand pressed to his mouth, eyes wide with fury or disbelief. Another woman was already tearing up. Jennings handed me a tissue. "Zariah, did you consent to anything your husband recorded, photographed, or distributed?" "No, never. I didn't even know." She nodded, then turned to the jurors. "The evidence supports everything Ms. Monroe has said. You'll see portions of the footage, as well as communication logs and financial records. I flinched. I didn't want anyone ever seeing those videos, but I needed them to. For justice. For truth. For every night he stole from me. A screen was set up. Jennings played short, necessary clips, nothing explicit, but enough. Enough to show Elijah leaning over me, moving my body, whispering instructions to himself. The jurors stiffened. One man whispered, "Jesus Christ." Jennings paused the footage and asked one final question. "Zariah, what do you want the jury to understand?" My breath quivered. That I didn't know, that I was asleep, that I trusted him. My chest tightened, and that what he took from me, I can never get back. Silence. Heavy, holy, unbreakable. Jennings placed her hand on my shoulder. No further questions. When I stepped out into the hallway, my legs nearly gave out. Kendra rushed to me, wrapping me in her arms. "You did it," she whispered. "You did the bravest thing anyone could do." I cried into her shoulder, shaking with the release of pressure I hadn't even realized was crushing me. "I was so scared," I whispered. "What if they don't indict?" "They will," she said firmly. I could feel the room shift. "They saw you. They believed you. But belief isn't certainty. Not until the verdict returns." So we waited. 2 days later, my phone rang. Ada Jennings. My heart stuttered. I answered with trembling hands. "Zariah," she said, and her voice contained something new, a note of satisfaction, of justice. The grand jury returned an indictment on all major counts. I exhaled a sob of relief. All major counts. It meant the jurors saw the truth. It meant Elijah would face trial. It meant the system wasn't turning away from me. I sat on Kendra's sofa and cried, deep, shaking sobs that came from the part of my soul that had been silent for months, waiting for this moment. That night, his lawyer filed a motion complaining that the charges were excessive. But the indictment stood. He apparently tried to send me another jail message, blocked instantly by the system due to the protective order. But ADA Jennings shared something with me. When the indictment was read, he went pale, completely silent. No emotion, just shock. I didn't feel sorry for him, not 1 ounce. Instead, something inside me straightened. I was no longer the unconscious woman in his videos. I was no longer the naive wife swallowing poison. I was the woman who exposed him, the woman who shattered his system, the woman he underestimated. Indictment was just the doorway. Now came months of legal arguments, evidence reviews, forensic reports, motion hearings, meetings with the DA. But for the first time, I walked into these meetings with a spine of steel. Jennings noticed. "You're stronger every time I see you," she said once. I didn't feel strong, but maybe surviving trauma looks different on the outside. Even with progress, my nights were storms. Sometimes I'd snap awake in Kendra's guest room, heart racing, convinced Elijah was standing over me. Sometimes I'd find myself checking the locks 3, 4, 5 times. Sometimes I couldn't shower unless Kendra was home. Sometimes I smelled something that reminded me of the pills, a faint bitterness, and my whole body would go cold. Healing wasn't a straight line. It was a spiral. But with each loop, I rose a little higher. Dr. Wells guided me through the darkest parts. "You survived something that would break many," she told me gently. "Every day you choose to wake up, breathe, speak, you're reclaiming a piece of yourself." Some days I believed her. Some days I didn't. But I kept showing up. That was the victory. By the time the grand jury indicted Elijah, the narrative was no longer his. It was mine. He thought he could steal my memories, drug my reality, control my story. But now 12 strangers had looked at evidence of his crimes and said, "We believe her. We see the truth. He will be held accountable." And for the first time since my nightmare began, I felt the faint, trembling outline of something returning to me. Power. The indictment didn't mean the battle was won. It only meant the battlefield was finally visible. After the grand jury hearing, ADA Jennings called me in for a new meeting. When I entered her office, something in her expression was different. Harder. Colder. She motioned for me to sit. "Zariah," she said, folding her hands, "we need to talk about witnesses." My stomach tightened. "Witnesses?" She nodded. "Elijah didn't act alone. He had clients, buyers. Some of those men interacted with him directly. A few visited your home. Others communicated online but never entered physically. We identified several of them through the financial logs." My mouth went dry. I didn't want to hear about them. I didn't want to know their names, their faces, their voices. But this wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what the case needed. Jennings continued, "3 of them have agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges. They will admit what they did under oath." The room tilted. I swallowed hard. Do I have to see them?" "You don't have to be in the room," she said. "But you can choose to be. Some survivors find closure in hearing the truth spoken out loud by the people who participated." Closure. What a strange word for something that felt like being ripped open. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in a small observation room behind a one-way mirror. Kendra beside me. My therapist, Dr. Wells, had encouraged me to bring someone. "I'll be right here," Kendra said, squeezing my hand. "I don't know if I can listen to this," I whispered. "Yes, you can," she whispered back. "And if you can't, I'll drag you out myself." Jennings entered the interview room on the other side of the glass. Opposite her sat a man, white, mid-40s, balding, nervous. He kept wringing his hands. His name was Thomas Ward. A coward's name, my mind hissed. A predator's name. Jennings spoke first. "Mr. Ward, for the record, please explain what you purchased from Elijah Monroe." Thomas cleared his throat. I bought photos and videos." "Of whom?" He hesitated. "Of his wife." Hearing it stabbed me. Jennings' voice was sharp. "Explain what he told you." He swallowed. "He said she knew. He said she agreed, that it was part of their private lifestyle. He told me she was into it." I felt myself begin shaking. Into it? Into being drugged unconscious? Into being turned into content? Kendra's hand tightened around mine so hard it hurt. "And you believed that?" Jennings asked. He winced. "I wanted to. I didn't think too hard about it." He made it sound harmless. Jennings leaned forward. "Did you ever meet his wife in person?" "No." "Did she ever communicate with you online?" "No." "Did Elijah ever provide proof of her consent?" His voice shrank. "No." Silence filled the room. Then Jennings asked the question that made my skin crawl. "So in your mind, what were you paying for?" His eyes dropped. "A woman who wouldn't say no." I gasped, a tiny strangled sound. Kendra's arm wrapped around me instantly. Thomas continued, voice trembling. "I didn't realize she was unconscious. I swear I didn't. He said she was role-playing." Role-playing. The word felt violent. Jennings' tone remained calm but deadly. "Mr. Ward, the videos clearly show Mrs. Monroe unresponsive, eyes closed, limp. Did that not raise concern?" He broke. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I didn't want to admit what it looked like. I didn't want to be that kind of person. "You were," Jennings said. "And now you're admitting it under oath." The interview ended. I sat motionless as the reality settled over me. He thought I was a fantasy, an object, a woman who didn't have to consent. But I wasn't a woman to him. I was content. The next witness came in. Javier Ortiz, mid-30s, Latino, tattoos along his arms. He didn't look ashamed. He looked defeated. Jennings began. "Mr. Ortiz, Describe your interaction with Elijah Monroe. He exhaled slowly. I paid to come into the house. My stomach twisted. Jennings nodded. And what did Elijah tell you before you entered? That his wife wouldn't wake up, that she was a heavy sleeper, that she took something to help her rest. I felt sick. And what did you expect to happen in that house? Javier stared at the floor. I thought I would get to see her, maybe touch, but nothing happened. He kept me in the basement the whole time. He said he had cameras upstairs and would show me a live feed of me. I saw her on the screen, he continued. She didn't move, not even a twitch. And I asked him, is she okay? Jennings raised an eyebrow. And what did he say? He said you were a deep sleeper, that it was part of the fun. The word fun snapped something in me. Javier's voice broke then. I knew something was wrong. I did, but I stayed. I paid. I didn't leave. He covered his face with his hands. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't care about his sorry. Sorry didn't erase what he participated in. Sorry didn't erase the images of my unconscious body being shown like merchandise. I stared at him through the mirror and felt nothing. Not forgiveness, not rage, not pity, just emptiness. The third witness destroyed me. He was younger, late 20s, black, soft-spoken. His name was Marcus Hill. Not my Marcus, not the future one who would eventually bring light into my life. This Marcus was part of the darkness. He sat down, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. Jennings began gently. Mr. Hill, why are you testifying today? He swallowed. Because I knew it was wrong. All of it. And I want to make it right. Jennings nodded. What did Elijah tell you? That his wife didn't know about the recordings. Kendra's breath caught. Jennings leaned in. Repeat that. Marcus's voice shook. He said, she doesn't know and she doesn't need to. He told us it was better that way, that she'd freak out if she found out. The world tilted. He knew I didn't know. He told them I didn't know. This wasn't a misunderstanding, or a miscommunication, or a kink twisted into lies. It was deliberate, calculated, fully intentional. Jennings continued. And what did you think about that? Marcus wiped his face. I hated it. I didn't show it, but I hated it. I shouldn't have bought anything. I was stupid, curious, sick. I'm not trying to excuse myself. His voice cracked. I knew you didn't know. I knew it. And I still watched. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, not because I cared about his guilt, but because hearing a stranger say out loud, we knew she didn't know, validated every instinct I doubted. Jennings cleared her throat. Mr. Hill, did Elijah ever describe the drugs he used on his wife? He nodded slowly. He said he wanted her manageable, that it made things easier. Manageable, like I was a difficult appliance. And did you ever see her conscious? No, never. Only in videos where she was out. Jennings glanced at me through the mirror for the briefest moment. I could tell this testimony would destroy Elijah. Completely. The interview ended. When all three men had finished, I felt like my bones had turned to ash. Kendra wrapped her arms around me. Breathe, Z. Come on. Breathe. I gasped like someone resurfacing from deep water. I didn't know, I whispered. I really didn't know. I know, she whispered. They know. The jury will know. Everyone will know. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. Knowing didn't make the violation disappear. Knowing only made the truth clearer. Elijah never doubted he was destroying me. He just assumed I'd never wake up to see it. Afterward, ADA Jennings sat with me in her office. Zariah, I know today was brutal, she said softly. But those testimonies, they're invaluable. They show intent, knowledge, collaboration. Not one of those men believed you were consenting. The defense cannot claim misunderstanding now. I nodded, numb. She continued. What Elijah did wasn't impulsive. It wasn't emotional. It was planned, structured, marketed. She pushed a file toward me. This is why we win. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Her confidence was enough. That night, I sat in silence on the edge of Kendra's guest bed. She brought me tea, held my hand, let me stare at the wall for as long as I needed. After a long while, I whispered, "Why didn't anyone save me sooner?" Kendra's voice was soft, breaking. "Because you were with someone who made sure no one saw you drowning." My tears finally came, long, silent, exhausting. But underneath the grief, underneath the horror, underneath the shaking, a spark remained. A spark of something Elijah had tried to extinguish, something those men had never expected to witness, but something that refused to die. Fight. I wasn't done, not even close. The courthouse felt colder the day the trial officially began. Not temperature cold, soul cold. A chill that crept into your bones and stayed there. Kendra came with me. So did my mom, who had flown in from Memphis the night before. When she hugged me in the hotel lobby, she whispered, "Baby, whatever happens, you are not doing this alone." I held on to that sentence like a lifeline. When the bailiff announced, "All rise," my chest tightened. I stood slowly, gripping the table in front of me. Ada Jennings stood beside me, calm, collected, unshakable. Then Elijah walked in. He was thinner than before, hair messier, eyes darker. But what unnerved me most was the look he tried to give me, the same soft, pleading expression he used to offer when he wanted to manipulate me, as if he could still reach me, as if we were the same people, as if I were still his. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled so violently, I had to clasp them together under the table. He lifted his cuffed hand slightly, almost like a wave he wasn't allowed to complete. I looked away. He would never see my eyes willingly again. Jennings leaned toward me. "Do not react. He has no power here." I nodded, breathing slowly through the nausea. Jury selection took days. I watched as dozens of people answered questions. Can you view sensitive evidence objectively? Do you understand the concept of consent? Have you, or anyone close to you, experienced sexual trauma? Can you remain impartial while hearing testimony about drugging? Some were dismissed immediately. People who said things like, "Well, if she stayed, it couldn't have been that bad," or "Married people record each other all the time, not a big deal." Or the worst one, "She should have noticed." Each sentence stabbed me, but Jennings remained stone-faced, striking biased jurors one by one. Eventually, 12 were chosen, 9 women, 3 men, diverse in race, age, background. When the last juror was seated, Jennings whispered, "We got a good panel." I exhaled slowly. Good panel meant fairness. Fairness meant truth. Truth meant justice. The courtroom was silent when the trial officially opened. Ada Jennings stood first. Her voice was steady, resonant, controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not about marital issues. It is not about misunderstandings. It is not about private, intimate behavior." She walked toward them. "This case is about a man who systematically drugged his wife for 7 months, robbed her of autonomy, recorded her body, sold images and access to strangers, and profited off the violation of the woman he vowed to protect." My throat tightened. Jennings continued, "You will see footage. You will hear from medical experts. You will hear from 3 of the men who purchased these images. You will see evidence Elijah Monroe tried to hide." She paused. "And more importantly, you will hear from the woman who survived this." I bit my lip hard to keep from crying. Then Elijah's lawyer stood, a tall, silver-haired man with a too-smooth voice. He walked toward the jury with an air of artificial calm. "This case," he began, "is about misunderstanding. Mrs. Monroe struggles with memory issues. She is emotional. She is traumatized. She filled in blanks incorrectly." I stiffened. He continued, "The videos were part of consensual activities. The vitamins were supplements she agreed to take. And any outsiders were not criminals, but buyers of content she knew about." Jennings shot to her feet. "Objection! Mischaracterization." "Sustained," the judge said. The defense attorney smiled gently. "Let me rephrase." He turned to the jury. "Mrs. Monroe believed she was being wronged, but belief is not evidence, and we will show she misremembered, misunderstood, and misinterpreted ordinary marital intimacy." It felt like being punched. Kendra squeezed my arm so tightly my fingers went numb. Jennings whispered, "He's doing what defense attorneys do. Don't internalize it." I nodded weakly, but hearing someone claim my suffering wasn't real, it shook something deep inside me. Still, the jurors' faces told me they weren't buying it. Not yet. Not ever, I hoped. The next day, Jennings began walking the jury through evidence methodically. She started with the lab reports. The pills contained Rohypnol, an illegal sedative, not supplements. She moved to the financial records. These are cryptocurrency payments tied to Elijah's accounts, consistent recurring payments from multiple buyers. She showed screenshots of chat logs. Elijah communicated with buyers, negotiated prices, and described his wife as out cold and won't wake. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. I stared at the table, trembling. Jennings whispered, "You're doing great." But the defense attorney kept objecting. Out of context. Hearsay? Speculation. The judge overruled most of them. At one point, Elijah leaned toward his attorney and whispered something aggressive. The attorney raised a hand to quiet him. Jennings noticed. She smirked, barely. The jurors noticed too. Detective Layla Hart took the stand first. She was calm, professional, precise. Jennings guided her. "Detective Hart, what did you find in the locked drawer?" "Multiple hard drives, hundreds of files." "What did the videos depict?" "Mrs. Monroe unconscious while her husband moved her body, changed her clothes, and filmed her." "And what did the basement footage show?" "Men exchanging money with the defendant while he displayed photos and videos." The defense attorney tried to rattle her. "Could these videos have been consensual role play?" "No," she said firmly. "Mrs. Monroe's unresponsiveness is consistent with sedation, not sleep. She never moved, never reacted. Her breathing patterns were slow and shallow. Her tone was unshakable. She was drugged." A murmur crossed the jury box. The defense shifted uncomfortably. The toxicologist explained, "The blood work from Mrs. Monroe taken after she left the home showed long-term exposure to sedatives, levels consistent with nightly dosing." Defense tried to blame anxiety medication. The expert shook his head. "No prescription drug she was given would create these symptoms. Only illegal sedatives match this profile." Jennings' smile was razor thin. During the toxicologist's testimony, something snapped in Elijah. He slammed his fist on the table. "She took them willingly. She begged for them. This is all." "Mr. Monroe," the judge barked, "one more outburst and you'll be removed from the courtroom." That was the first time I truly saw the monster behind the mask. Not the smiling husband, not the gentle liar, not the soft-spoken manipulator. A man furious that his control was gone. A man who believed he still had ownership over me. I leaned into Kendra and whispered, "That's who he really is." "Yes," she whispered back, and everyone just saw it. Several jurors nodded subtly. Jennings looked at Elijah with a cold, victorious calm. The trial had only just begun, but the cracks in Elijah's defense were already showing. The evidence was overwhelming. The witnesses were solid. The jury was paying attention. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not just survival, strength. The kind of strength that comes from standing in the truth, even when your voice shakes. I wasn't done. I wasn't broken. I wasn't alone. This was my story now, and I was ready to finish it. The courtroom felt smaller the morning I was scheduled to testify, like the walls were inching closer, like the air was heavier, like every sound was too loud. But I walked in anyway. My legs trembled. My heart pounded. My throat felt too tight to swallow. Yet I walked. Kendra squeezed my hand before I left the spectator bench. "You got this," she whispered. My mom nodded, eyes glossy. "Baby, God is with you." I believed them. Or at least, I wanted to. When the judge called, "Mrs. Monroe, please take the stand," my entire body buzzed with adrenaline. I stood. My palms were sweaty. My knees felt weak. But I didn't fall. I stepped forward, one foot after the other, toward the wooden witness stand. I sat. The bailiff handed me the oath. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," I whispered. And the moment those words left my mouth, something incredible happened. My trembling slowed, my breathing steadied, because this was the moment Elijah never expected to see. He thought he drugged my voice away forever, but here I was, speaking, remembering, accusing, surviving. Jennings approached with a warm, steady expression. "Zariah," she said softly, "I know this is difficult. We will go slowly. If you need a break, just say so." I nodded. "Okay. Can you tell the jury your name?" "Zariah Monroe." "Your former name?" "Zariah Bennett." "When did you marry the defendant?" 3 years ago." Jennings took a breath. "Zariah, when did you first notice something was wrong?" I closed my eyes for a second, and then I told them. Everything. The memory gaps, the exhaustion, the pajamas, the bruises, the conversations I didn't remember, the night I overheard Elijah whispering, "She'll be out cold." I watched jurors shift uncomfortably. One woman pressed a tissue to her lips. Jennings moved slowly, compassionately. "Zariah, what made you realize the pills were not vitamins?" "The taste," I said quietly, and the way I felt less like I was falling asleep and more like disappearing. "And what happened the night you pretended to take the pills?" I swallowed hard. "I stayed awake. I heard him go downstairs. I heard another man's voice. They were talking about me like I was a product." A juror gasped. Jennings paused. "You're doing incredibly well," she whispered. I blinked back tears and continued. "I bought cameras. I put one in the bedroom and one in the basement. And I recorded what he was doing." Jennings nodded and showed the jury still images from the footage. Careful ones, not violating ones, but enough to show the truth. A woman in the jury covered her mouth in horror. Jennings stepped closer. "Zariah, when you saw the footage, what did you feel?" My voice shook. Sick, broken, terrified. Like my life wasn't mine anymore. Like I was an object in my own home. My breath wavered, and like the man I loved, never existed at all. Jennings let the silence hang, letting the jury feel the weight of my words. Then she smiled gently. No further questions. Then the defense attorney stood. I braced myself. He buttoned his suit jacket slowly, theatrically, and walked toward the witness stand with a look that tried to mimic sympathy. But his eyes were knives. "Mrs. Monroe," he said softly, "I'm very sorry for what you went through. Truly. It was a lie. A performance. However," he continued, turning to the jury, "memories can be unreliable, especially during times of stress. Here it comes. Isn't it true," he said, facing me again, "that you were on anxiety medication during these months?" "Yes," I said calmly. "It was prescribed." and I took it as directed. He nodded slowly. And anxiety medication can cause memory issues, can it not? It didn't cause what happened to me. But it could create confusion, yes? No? He raised an eyebrow. No? Are you a medical expert, Mrs. Monroe? No, I said, steady. But I know the difference between forgetting a sentence and losing 7 months of my life. Some jurors nodded. His smile tightened. Mrs. Monroe, is it possible you and your husband engaged in intimate activities you later regretted? My jaw clenched. No. Is it possible you consented? And later, no. He blinked. No. I leaned forward. Consent requires consciousness. I was not conscious, and he knew that. A ripple of reaction spread across the courtroom. Jennings smirked. The defense attorney inhaled sharply. Mrs. Monroe, I interrupted. Stop calling me Mrs. Monroe. My last name is Bennett again. The courtroom went silent. The attorney's face reddened. He tried again. Ms. Bennett, in the footage, you appear peaceful, asleep. I was drugged. You cannot prove? Your own medical expert testified that the sedative traces match nightly dosing. He stiffened. I continued, voice gaining strength. You keep implying I misremembered, but I didn't misremember anything. I didn't forget anything. I fixed my eyes on the jury. I never knew anything, because he made sure I couldn't. Several jurors nodded. One brushed away a tear. Jennings sat back, satisfied. The defense attorney tried one last tactic. Ms. Bennett, why didn't you leave sooner? A cruel question, a manipulative one. But I was ready. I looked straight into the jury box, because I didn't know I needed to. Because the danger wasn't a bruise or a scream or a fight. It was hidden in a pill bottle, in trust, in love. My throat trembled, and because predators don't always look like monsters, sometimes they look like husbands. The courtroom was silent enough to hear people breathing. The judge finally spoke. Counsel, I believe that's enough. The defense sat down, defeated. I stayed on the stand, breathing hard, shaking, but still upright, still speaking, still winning. When the judge dismissed me, my legs nearly buckled, but Jennings was there instantly, her hand on my back. You were extraordinary, she whispered. You didn't just survive, you testified with strength people dream of having. I didn't feel extraordinary. I felt hollow, tired, drained. But when I stepped toward the spectator seats, something happened. I'll never forget. Every woman in the courtroom, jurors, spectators, clerks, even the court reporter, looked at me with a mix of awe and heartbreak and fierce respect, because they saw themselves in me, in my vulnerability, in my fight, in my truth. Elijah watched me walk past him. His eyes weren't pleading anymore. They were angry, afraid, because for the first time, he understood. He had lost me. He had lost control. He had lost everything. And I, Zariah, had my voice back. The closing arguments were set for Friday morning, 4 days after I testified, 4 days of waiting, 4 days of nightmares, pacing, sitting in silence with Kendra, gripping cups of tea I never finished. My mother prayed nonstop. I could hear her in the next room each night whispering, Lord, please give my daughter justice. Please let the truth be seen. By Friday morning, my stomach was a tight knot of nausea and fear. But I walked back into that courtroom anyway, because this was the last chapter before a new beginning. The courtroom was packed. Reporters had caught wind of the case. Women sat in the back, strangers who had survived their own traumas, silently supporting me. Elijah sat beside his attorney, wearing a suit that no longer fit him, his cheeks hollow, his eyes sunken, his posture tense. Jennings stood first. She walked slowly toward the jury, her heels echoing on the floor. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began softly, "you have heard a horror story." She paused. "But unlike the stories we tell children, this one did not come from imagination. This one happened inside a marriage, inside a home, inside the body of a woman who had the right to safety." She gestured toward me, "A woman who trusted the wrong man." Jennings' voice gained power. "The defense wants you to believe this was intimacy, that this was consent, that this was misunderstanding." She leaned in. "But consent cannot be given by someone unconscious. Consent cannot be hidden in memory gaps. Consent does not come in pill bottles containing illegal sedatives." She clicked a remote. Images appeared on the screen. The vitamins bottle, the cash transfers, the log of cryptocurrency payments, the group chats between Elijah and buyers, and finally, still images from the camera footage. Several jurors visibly recoiled. Jennings lowered her voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, not stress, not marital miscommunication. This was exploitation. This was drugging. This was trafficking. And this was intentional." She took one final breath. "Do not let him hide behind the word husband. Hold him accountable for the man he really is." Then she sat down. The entire courtroom exhaled, as though released from a spell. Elijah's attorney rose slowly. He buttoned his jacket and faced the jury with fake sadness. "Ladies and gentlemen, marriages are complicated." "Terrible start." He pointed to me. "This woman is traumatized. She believes these things happened in a certain way. But belief does not equal truth." No one reacted. He continued. "Maybe Elijah crossed boundaries. Maybe they miscommunicated. But that does not make him a criminal." A juror narrowed her eyes. "Bad sign for him." "And the prosecution," he said dramatically, "they have shown you emotions, not facts." Wrong again. Then he made his final mistake. "Elijah is not a monster. He is a husband who loved too intensely," the courtroom murmured. Jennings stood immediately. "Objection. Disallowed characterization." "Sustained," the judge said firmly. The defense attorney sank into his chair, defeated. The jurors filed into the deliberation room. The door closed, and time stopped. Every minute felt like 10. My hands shook so badly my mother held them both inside hers, like she was trying to warm frozen fingers. Kendra rubbed circles on my back. Jennings checked her watch every few minutes, though she pretended she wasn't watching. After 4 hours, the bailiff appeared. "The jury has reached a verdict." My heart dropped. My breath caught. My vision blurred. This was it. Everything I'd survived, everything I'd suffered, everything I'd fought for, all for this moment. We stood. The jurors walked in silently. The forewoman, a woman in her 50s with strong eyes, held the verdict forms. The judge asked, "Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a unanimous decision?" "Yes, Your Honor." She handed the papers to the bailiff. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own pulse. The judge read aloud, "On count 1, administering drugs without consent. Guilty." My knees buckled. Kendra grabbed my waist. "On count 2, sexual exploitation. Guilty." Elijah clenched his jaw. "On count 3, distribution of intimate images without consent. Guilty." Tears ran down my cheeks. "On count 4, trafficking-related offenses. Guilty." A gasp echoed through the room. "On all remaining counts. Guilty." Jennings closed her eyes, relieved. My mother sobbed into her hands. Kendra hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "And Elijah?" he erupted. "This isn't fair. She lied. She lied," he screamed, pulling against the deputies. The judge slammed his gavel. "Remove him from the courtroom." The deputies dragged him out as he shouted, "Zaria, baby, please." I didn't look at him, not once, because he was no longer a husband, no longer a manipulator, no longer a threat. He was a convicted criminal, and I was free. 3 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. This time, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't broken. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The judge allowed me to read a victim impact statement. I stood before the courtroom, before Elijah, before the system, and I spoke. You took 7 months from me, I began. My autonomy, my safety, my trust. You turned my home into a crime scene. You poisoned my sleep. You stole my memories. You sold my body like I was merchandise. Elijah stared at me, tears streaming down his face. Fake tears, manipulative tears. I didn't care. But here's what you didn't take, I continued. You didn't take my strength. You didn't take my voice. You didn't take my future. I survived you. I survived everything you did. And I will spend the rest of my life healing, while you spend the rest of yours remembering what you did to me. A hush filled the courtroom. The judge looked at Elijah. You are sentenced to 18 years in state prison without the possibility of parole before 12 years. You will register as a sex offender for life. My exhale was shaky but powerful. It was over, truly over. The divorce was finalized within 6 months. I kept my maiden name. I sold the house. I donated part of the settlement to survivor organizations, and I moved to Charlotte for a new start. That first night in my new apartment, I stood in the living room surrounded by boxes and silence. Then I whispered to myself, "You're free." For the first time in years, I slept without fear of being watched, without fear of waking up in different clothes, without fear of losing time. I installed my own security cameras, not out of paranoia, but out of ownership. My home, my rules, my body, my life. Therapy helped, slowly, painfully, steadily. I rebuilt trust in tiny pieces. Then I met Marcus. His gentleness didn't scare me. His patience didn't feel like control. His kindness didn't feel like manipulation. When I told him my story, he didn't flinch. He said, "Thank you for trusting me with something so sacred." And that sentence alone helped rewrite something inside me. 2 years later, I'm 36 now. I teach again. I laugh again. I sleep again. I love again. Slowly, carefully, beautifully. I'm not the woman Elijah tried to turn me into. I'm not broken. I'm not ruined. I'm not defined by what he did. I am Zariah Bennett, a survivor, a fighter, a woman who reclaimed her story. And if you're listening, if you're watching, if you're reading this, please hear me. You can rebuild, you can survive, you can rise again, and you are not alone. I promise.